Welcome to the Cardano Hotel podcast. To support the show, please delegate to Stakepool Hotel and Stakepool Alcool.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Cardano Hotel podcast. I'm Joanna here with Alfred. Today we have a very special guest, Glen Jordan from Empowa. This project is extremely dear to my heart for the amazing work that they're doing in Africa and hopefully beyond. Glen, do you like to introduce yourself and maybe talk about Empowa and your vision and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time. So my name is Glen Jordan. I'm the co-founder of Empowa. I'm a Zimbabwean by birth, an African by upbringing, and a Dutchman by recent history, living now in the Netherlands. And really how Empowa started and how we're looking at it is that I was involved with fintech in Africa, and very involved with being a Zimbabwean, with helping Zimbabwean migrants particularly become part of the financial system. But the realization was that one of the fundamental challenges that we have is the creation of wealth. How do we find mechanisms to create wealth for those who really are at the bottom of the pyramid and find it a challenge? And one of the first things realized was that property is one of the fundamental building blocks to the creation of wealth. And unfortunately, property is really an exclusionary thing, because for more than 70% of the population, of the global population, they don't have access to the property systems in order to create that wealth. Mm-hmm. And that's for a number of reasons. The assumption generally is that poverty, that the challenge around property is poverty, but it's not. It's structural. And like in most countries, it costs money to be poor. It's very difficult to be poor. You pay more for everything when you're poor. And the research that I was doing in Cape Town in South Africa, as an example, illustrated, and literally the areas were 300 meters apart. And there was a traditional, in the apartheid structure, there was the old white area, which was part of the formal world, if you like, it's a formal economy. And then there was the old black area, which was part of the informal economy. And the rentals in the informal economy, so that's for the land, that's just for the land on which people then had to build their own shack, was between 4 and 11 times higher than the rental for an apartment in the middle of town.
Yeah. Okay.
So
how crazy is that?
How insane is that? So when we look across the vast cities of shanties, the assumption is that there's no money there. And that's not true. There is. Mm-hmm. It's really around the structural systems that prevent infrastructure from being developed.
It's just that life is more expensive in those areas.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So how do we find a way of making that flow work, that we can invest into those areas to create infrastructure in a way that creates wealth for the people who need it most? And that's the basis of Empowa.
Yeah. I mean, I can even relate to it, because even in countries where I live or have lived, it's always the expression of being able to climb the ladder, and it seems that the real estate market very oftentimes grows faster than the actual wages. So people never actually make that step. So I can only imagine what it's like in Africa. It must be like by an extremity factor of like 20, so.
Exactly. And that's why there's a backlog of 50 million homes across Africa. Yeah.
How do you find backlog? In what sense backlog?
So in other words, there is a pent-up demand of there's 50 million homes that are required currently to house people in Africa. So more than 1 billion people live without a permanent roof over their heads. Oof. So literally, those people who are paying that kind of rental, if you like, for that land, have to put up their own shack. So they literally live in a tin can, corrugated iron shack that they put up themselves in order to live. And then, of course, you've got all the services and facilities that have to then be busting or
water,
trucked in or
electricity,
whatever,
and
exactly,
whatever.
to get access to
Not
that.
to mention internet. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's all of those processes that need to then come, which cost more on top of that.
Right.
So exactly that. So how do we find a mechanism that we can create that kind of investment flows to meet those needs, so that literally it can become more cost effective as well as improve living conditions.
So how do you?
Yeah.
So how do we? So that's the approach we're taking now, is the decentralization of that, because historically the financial systems can't cope, because the traditional banking sector or mortgage sector, number of issues happen with that. One is it looks backwards. So in order to qualify for a mortgage, you have to have an ID, you have to be part of the formal employment market, which is immediately cuts out 70% of the market, because in the developing world, people work informally.
Right.
And we know the challenges with ID. So there's no ways that people then can have access to a mortgage. And that results in countries like Mozambique, where a country of 30 million people has 600 mortgages.
What?
30 million people, 600 mortgages. That same ratio is extended into Nigeria, the most populated nation in Africa. The same ratio of mortgages exists.
Okay, the system clearly isn't working. How are you guys intending to fix this then?
Yeah, so the thing around that is how do we look forward? So how do we create reputation going forward as opposed to backwards? And so that's part of the objective. So we're utilizing a lease to own model as opposed to a mortgage. So it's around, we develop the process by which we do that. So if we look at it, how exactly how do we do that? The structuring is effectively, if we look at it in the traditional world, it would be, how do we provide financing for housing to people who literally wouldn't normally qualify for a mortgage in a way that provides a return to those providers of capital, as well as improving the living conditions for people on the ground. So our objective is to use blockchain and NFTs to do that. So it's around getting the value flow from people who can provide capital to those people who need it on the ground, as well as returns back to those people, those providers of funding.
Okay, let's get into the nitty gritty. Like, give me like a real life example.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to share my screen and show a visual of the platform, and maybe you can just give us like a high level walkthrough of the stakeholders, how everything goes together, just so our viewers can understand the platform a bit better, and then maybe we can go through like a real life example or something of that sort.
Yeah. Give us like an example of like Joe, who lives in a shack somewhere in Africa, and how is he going to access to what you are creating? How does this work?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the greatest challenges that we have, obviously, is it right now, if you'll see, so at the top of this diagram that you're showing, that you're seeing here, you'll see fiat payments to collectors. Now, effectively, what we're saying here is that these collectors, this is NFTs. We're using NFTs here. So what we've called the collector is really a client for an impact card. So that you buy an impact card, which then is linked to the platform. And that provides, so effectively the fiat is converted into EMP, which goes into the platform, which then gets provided to there, as you see in this corner, in the bottom left-hand corner, the approved supplier. Now, what we've done in our pilot study in Mozambique is the supplier, landowner are the same, and project partner are effectively the same person. So it makes it easier as a starting point. But one of the things that when you speak to any housing developer, affordable housing developer on the ground, their greatest challenge is obviously offtake. So it's around providing a market for that. So if they know that there is affordable financing available for the market, there's almost an unlimited market. So the issue around that is partnering, is finding trusted partners who deliver housing on the ground, who are able to deliver this housing. So using the practical example that you asked about, Alfred, our first project, we're working with a company called Casa Real in Beira, Mozambique. Now, we targeted Mozambique for the simple reason that it is one of the poorest countries in the world. Beira is climate affected. It's one of the most climate affected cities in the world because it now gets hit by cyclones. And so the ability was to say, can we utilize, if we can do this in Mozambique, we can do it in any country in Africa.
Right.
Yeah. So we started with the hardest. So the funds go to the supplier of housing, who then provides the lease to own. So as opposed to a mortgage, it's a lease to own to the end user. So somebody who's earning between $250 and $750 in Mozambique now gets access to a formal starter home that starts at $10,000, a building price of about $10,000. So, and they are able to pay that off over time. And the objective is that within 10 years that gets paid off. What happens just then effectively what happens, and obviously there's some complexity that there's our entire white paper that deals with this, but the objective then is that those repayments go back to the platform through the EMP token and get back to the NFT as a collector. So what we're seeking to do there is we're trying to create as much value above the line, if you like, above this Empowa platform for collectors. Mm-hmm. So people collect NFTs for a myriad of reasons, for collectibles, for artistic value, for whatever other reason. Right. What we're calling them as impact cards, because we're saying there's impact. You can invest for impact. The impact on the ground, for housing, for women empowerment, for environmental impact, right, for artistic value, for whatever. So it's about creating value at the top of, above the line, above that platform, so that we don't have to extract value from below the platform.
What might an NFT like that look like? In what form or shape would it come?
So literally right now, the first ones that we generated were just literally a piece of art, which was it was one portion of a canvas, what we called it a canvas. Right. And we divided it into 1,000 pieces. And each person bought a portion of that. Mm-hmm. And that unique piece is a portion of that canvas.
Where is your market? Where do you find the market to purchase these NFTs?
On the usual NFT marketplaces right now. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the platform that we're developing as a community to be able to market that, to be able to get this into the market and to create values and tradability, etc., on those empowerment cards.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just curious about this aspect. So, okay, please continue.
Yeah, no, sure. So the whole objective is to create as much value above the line so that we're not extracting value from below the line. So in other words, if you talk about traditional property investment, if you like, as soon as you say we're looking at affordable housing in Nigeria, for example, people say, I want 30% return. So we're saying what we're trying to do.
You mean investors, people?
Exactly, traditional investors. Right. So how do we try and create returns so that it does attract capital, attract people who want to contribute, provide return, but it's not extractive. So it's not that kind of 30%. So we're wanting to reduce risk, add value above the line, while not extracting value from below the line, but in a practical way, which is the platform that you see here.
So I'd like to just talk a little more about the impact cards. I read that different cards will have different attributes, and then they would come in like series of, or like a pack of cards. Can we just talk a little more about that and what the attributes mean and how you can increase the value? I think I also read something really interesting about how it's tied to like a collector being able to follow the progress of the property that their NFT is linked to, or something, which gives it like an extremely amazing human element, I think, that I found very, very cool about this. Would you mind?
And in addition to that, Joanna, is it possible to put some of the NFTs or images on screen so we can look at something like this already? Is that available?
Yeah, I think Alfred, the sort of maybe talk. Let me answer that, because part of that is obviously we're at the early stage. We're still very early stage. So the whole thing around it is that we are seeking to be a platform that links. It's a decentralized platform. Our whole objective is to create this so that it is decentralized. So our whole objective is that we are not creating cards, that we are not creating NFTs. There are other people who are creating NFTs.
Right.
So that if there's talking of a backlog of 50 million, we cannot begin. If we were building 100,000 homes a year, it would take us 500 years to address the backlog.
Right.
Okay. So in order to address this at scale, we have to be decentralized.
Correct.
So we are looking to provide a platform for people to come in. So anybody can come up with any NFT idea,
right?
Any project that says, listen, I want to help here. I want to contribute here. I've got comedy that I want to introduce. I've got art that I'd like to introduce. I'm a celebrity. I'd like to make an impact. So we're trying not to limit it in any shape or form, but to create this platform that opens up so that NFT can create as much, can be as flexible as possible.
Yeah.
So that's the one aspect of it. In terms of the feedback and impact that you talk about, that measurement and report back is, again, what we want to build into the platform so that it becomes part of that, so that it's a living, breathing story that people can see it. We have to balance that with the privacy of the people who receive the funding, etc. So, some of that is limited. Some people don't want to share those stories, which is also fine, but it's around creating as much as we can around that.
I also read somewhere that there's a main problem with landowners in Africa, just like from property rights or the fact that there's no proof of ownership. I know a big part of Empower too is connecting those landowners to possible suppliers or, being able to build on those lands. How are you guys solving that issue? Or I know that you said maybe there's like a 10-year turnaround for landowners potentially if something happened. Would you like to maybe just talk a bit about how you guys are solving that problem?
Yeah, so as part of our pilot that we've run, that we got Catalyst funding for, through the Cardano community, which we're very grateful for. The first project, we were seeking to build one house. We ended up building 4 in Beira, and two of those homes are CO2 negative and circular. So a key part around it. So while we're building, in terms of the blockchain and that emerging technology, there's also emerging building technology.
Right.
And that's a global phenomenon as well. People are becoming very focused on circular building. How do we create that lessen the environmental impact of building?
So does circular building have a better impact than, you mean, in terms of energy consumption and preservation?
Yes, energy consumption and also the reuse of materials. So it's around being able to reuse, literally that every part of the building can be reutilized, that it doesn't, right now we break it down in concrete and send it to landfill.
Right.
So it's around how do we reuse the elements of a building so that we can restructure it or reuse it or repurpose it or in our case, move it. So if there's a land issue, we can say, well, now traditionally we put down foundations, put up concrete structures that were fixed to the land. Now, are there ways that we can create buildings that are not fixed to the land and that we can move it if it needs to be moved because of some land rights issue, etc. Right. So that's part of what we were testing in our Catalyst project in Mozambique. So 2 of the homes are circular as well as CO2 negative. The challenge that we have with that is market acceptance, because concrete bricks are aspirational. So for more than 100 years, we've been telling the world, or particularly in Africa, that the traditional way of building is inferior to the Western way of building. So now at a level, so that's become aspirational. So now, if it's not concrete, it's not a house kind of scenario. So there are challenges with that we need to work with and find ways of trying to work with the market to make this practical and sustainable, but environmentally friendly as we go forward.
Well, maybe by other partnerships, maybe you have a bigger market infiltration. Anyway, exactly. I imagine there's like a growing awareness, worldwide, and this is where we have to be going. So yeah, just ride the wave,
Yeah, exactly. That's part of it. It's so that there's that from a funding perspective, but it's also on the ground. How do we make it aspirational? How do we make environmentally friendly builds aspirational?
Amazing. So then I think we've touched base on how this, or like the Empower platform would give opportunity for landowners and how they could utilize their land. Maybe we can also talk about other stakeholders that could benefit from this. So like renters and tenants and property managers,
Right.
and how Empower will utilize that, like how they can utilize the platform to create like an ecosystem where all of these people can work together.
Yeah. So thanks. And exactly. So like we're outlining, it's a decentralized platform. Our objective is to enable providers to be able to link to the platform. So our first stage that we're working with is trusted providers. But just as we spoke about the user, the end consumer, not having a track record and not having a history, there are very few developers, as you can imagine, in Africa. There are very few developers around Africa who can build more than a couple of hundred houses at a time.
Right.
So our whole thing around that is how do we stimulate that? How do we get that? So how do we support them in that process? So and build reputation. So the reputation of those providers has to build over time as well. So our initial objective is to work with trusted providers that we know already through our experience, and then to build out from that on the same basis. Also knowing that rent gets paid in fiat. It doesn't get paid in crypto. And so we've got a long way to go before we get to that. So how do we manage that process? So again, right now, we're doing that initially through trusted partners in terms of the developer and the owner, like Casa Real in Mozambique. So we work through them in terms of that process so that they can manage the payments, tenants, etc. And then that gets put onto the platform. And then we can manage that way while we take time to get it into the actual market itself, which will take time.
So Casa Real is like a big real estate company in Mozambique. Is that what I understand correctly?
It's a small developer.
A
small developer in Beira, a small affordable housing developer in Beira. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So then what are the efforts that you guys are doing on ground right now, and how are you ensuring that the agreements are up to par and everything that's being used is trusted and verified through Empowa as well?
So that's all part of the process as we go. So initially, as we work in, as I say, like with trusted, so we started in Mozambique with Casa Real. As you can imagine, we've already got partners elsewhere. That's the next stage of how do we get them, how do we onboard them, how do we develop that? That's certainly part of the process and what we're doing over our, if you look at our roadmap, that's what's on the objectives as we go forward. I think the biggest thing really to understand is that we are still very early stage here. It's very early days, and we're doing something that's never been done before. So, and we realize that it's, we've bitten off, it's a big chunk. We realize that, and it's ambitious. So we really, it's a bit like the entire Cardano community. Effectively, we're saying, we're going to move a bit more slowly. We're not trying to get out there. We're not a DeFi. We can't, it's not copy paste. We're not replicating something else that's been done before. We're going to make mistakes as well. So, we're working with the community to say that we're learning as we go too. So, walk with us, join our journey as our sort of byline. It's this is our intention. This is where we want to go. This is the process. We haven't got all the answers yet. I don't know some of this, we haven't got all the agreements in place yet. It's part of what we need to be putting in place as we go to manage this, to make sure. And that's why it's important we work with trusted partners that we can work with, trust, get that, and then together work out the issues around the legality so that we can replicate that, so that we can put that onto the platform and then really decentralize as we go.
As far as trusted partners go, are you guys in touch with World Mobile?
We are indeed. We are indeed in touch with them. Nothing formalized as yet, but absolutely. We have very similar ethos and objectives.
Yeah,
and absolutely.
This seems to be like another part of the puzzle where Cardano and World Mobile, or IOHK World Mobile, has already one about identity and one about connectivity. And then
Exactly.
you're about housing, so it's like another part of the puzzle, right? So
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
makes complete
good luck.
sense.
Is there like another specific project in the pipeline? Like now you've been building in Mozambique, you got your 4 houses built.
Yeah.
What's next concretely?
Absolutely, we're in discussions. It'll probably still be in Mozambique, just in terms of managing the complexity of another country, etc.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me. So it will probably be there, but we're working on that exactly to scale it. To extend it exactly
from prototype to
exactly
to project management.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Joanna.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking maybe we can run through the example that was kind of in the white paper, very high level, just so we can paint a picture for the viewers, because honestly, I found it extremely useful. So let's say like I have a property that I want to build some housing on. So then I would go to existing developers, then create like a contract with them, correct?
Yeah.
And that contract would be recorded on the Empowa platform.
Yep.
And then, or do you want to take it from here? How about
so,
you just?
So again, initially it would be with a trusted provider.
Yeah.
Okay. Ultimately, it could be with any provider.
Yeah.
And then it will be
which we could find through the Empowa platform, like developers could sign up or somehow. Okay, awesome.
Exactly. So yeah, go to that, get that exactly as you say, get that contracted out, put that onto the platform, and then put that into the platform as a project.
Yeah.
Then it would be a question of somebody finding a way of funding that project. So either they or somebody else who comes in and says, find a way of doing that, creating a mechanism by which that gets sold and marketed.
Those
NFTs, those impact cards,
yeah.
Exactly. So a mechanism by which they can either create their own or get somebody else to help them, or if they don't have those skills or resources to be able to do that. So again, it's very much around the decentralization. How do we enable people, give them the tools and resources by which they can either be supported or do it themselves?
Right.
So then it'll be to raise funds to do that. And then those funds will be invested into that project through the platform. And then the returns flow back to that platform, back through to that NFT through the platform.
And then from my understanding is that you provide even more where there'd be like property managers that would, like you said, collect the rent, turn it into EMP tokens that would feed back that loop, and then also find tenants. And then also what I found really interesting was that you're talking about the capturing history and even just like incentive for renters to be good tenants. Is that you could just record, their how they're maintaining the houses, if they're paying on time, and that could also give them kind of like a history for if they were to move to other houses and stuff, which I found very empowering as well.
Exactly, and I think that's it's a key part around it, because it's around building. It's about building, reputation.
Empowering.
Exactly. It's about building reputation moving forward, because
this
is exactly it. People do pay rent. It's one of the fundamental building blocks of life. So you pay people, but nobody, that's never recorded anywhere. No, there's no record of that. So because of the informality of it, so we need to create a mechanism by which immediately, that's it, the reputation is being built.
Somebody has to be able to show up, and there has to be like a verification mechanism whereby the lender will say, okay, I know who you are, and there you go, and let's go.
And like a good incentive mechanism for a tenant to be for a renter to be a good tenant, as someone that's moved maybe over 25 times the past 5 years. I'm a good tenant, but then when I want to move somewhere, I have to contact my old landlord, and if they even pick up or if they don't, and I've been ripped off a couple of times, and then I leave places better than when I came, and I have no incentive, to kind of maintain the property. And I think building that into the platform is a great idea for not just Africa, for all everywhere.
Anybody. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's very much where there's a lack of infrastructure is how do we create things for forward looking instead of backward looking. It's key. It's
exactly
key.
say goodbye to the old ways of doing stuff and
exactly
and change the world, right? Yeah.
Exactly. It's the only way we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joanna, is there anything that you feel that hasn't been addressed yet? Because we're going.
I just kind of wanted to ask about maybe your plans for 2022, anything you want to touch on the roadmap, or anything that you haven't maybe talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously from the point of view of, at this time last year, Empowa was a seed of an idea. Okay. Together with Phil, we sat down, we wrote the white paper, we applied to Catalyst for funding. We got funding in Fund 5. So with that, it's been really an interesting journey. So where we are now, so as I say, we're still early days. We're very proud of the fact that we built those 4 houses, because in RealFi, there are 2 aspects to it. You've got to prove to the crypto community that you can deliver.
You guys have any YouTube videos, for example, about the housing project that people can look at?
Yeah, in fact, reporting back to Catalyst tomorrow night. So I think it's tomorrow night or Thursday night, and then the video will be on the website.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah,
we'll put it on the credits. Okay.
Yeah, great. So but it is on the website though. There's what to date, progress to date.
All right.
So yeah, so it was proving to the crypto community that we could deliver on the ground, because if you've ever worked in Africa, you know that can be challenging. So to demonstrate that we do have the partners and the relationships to be able to do that, and to demonstrate to the developers and that actually not everybody's bad in crypto. It's overcoming all of that
prejudice.
That kind of exactly. It's like everybody's a money launderer and a drug dealer.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, exactly. So to overcome that prejudice, it's really part of this, step by step working with each player. So that's what we've done to date. So we did an ISPO. We started our ISPO at the beginning of last year, at the end of last year. This month, as you see here, we're doing our token sale, but at the end of January. So we're moving towards that. So we're busy with that at the moment, building our community.
The EMP token.
So the 3 aspects. Yeah, the EMP token, correct. So you'll see there the building community impact. So we're working on those 3 areas all the time. So we will be doing further building, as you said, Alfred. We'll be doing more building. We're building more of the community around this, and then the impact, the measurement of the impact, obviously all the time while developing the platform. So our token sale is to raise the required resources to really get into the platform development, so that we can apply the proper resources to do that. Because up until now, we've all been working kind of free, gratis, part-time, exactly. And so to turn it into a real project.
Where can the token be found?
All of it's on the website.
Okay.
We're not doing it through a
exchange.
Yeah, through an exchange or a platform. We're doing it ourselves. So pretty much, again, following the World Mobile methodology. We've really kept the numbers low, because again, as part of our ethos, we want everybody to have access to it. So we really want to give the numbers are low, the quantums are low, in terms of really trying to get allow as many people as we can on board to join our journey and to come for our journey, to really enjoy it, to come with us and explore and see how we can do this and make this really work.
Right. My last question regarding what is the name of the website or the URL? www.empower.
Empowa.io.
Empowa.io. Then how much revenue do you think you'll be able to raise with your token sale? And secondly, you've done a catalyst proposal, which was you were funded.
Yep.
But I'm guessing that now you have the proof that your project has worked. Would you be able to then submit like a second catalyst proposal, maybe for like a larger sum?
We could, but really what we were trying to do with that, because we wanted to do it through we didn't want to overlap the funding from Catalyst and the token sale or the business, if you like. Okay. So that was why we said focus specifically on houses, so that can be done, and use the token sale to raise the funding for that more than looking at Catalyst for further funding. I think in terms of the Catalyst funding, what it's done has really catalyzed amazing conversations. It's exceeded even my expectations from an environmental perspective, from the discussions that we've had, from bringing people into Cardano that weren't exposed to it before, bringing people into crypto who weren't exposed to it before. It's exceeded even my expectations. So I think from a catalyst perspective, we've really delivered on that aspect for the Cardano community. So really now it's around utilizing the resources that we're building. We on the market is 20 million tokens at 25 cents. So it's about $4 million that we're raising to get it up and running.
Great. Okay. Joanna,
Awesome.
any famous last words?
No, I'd like to wrap it up actually by just reading the ethos. It's really just what empowerment is, and it's the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. And I think you guys are doing everything to follow that. I hope, I wish you the best of luck. This is a project that's so amazing, not just because it's empowering women, it's protecting the planet, it's giving so much opportunity to people that need it most. And, there's so much incentive for people to be involved in this, whether it's if they're interested in NFTs and art or property or whatever it might be. So best of luck. Thank you so much for being here.
Not at all. And thanks for that. That's exactly it. Join our journey. Come along for the ride. As I say, we don't know if we're going to get everything right, but we sure as hell going to try.
For sure.
Famous last words.
Exactly.
Couldn't agree more. We'll frame that.
Great.
All right.